Hello and welcome to this session today on project evaluation. This is the fourth in a series of project management live sessions that are recorded and will be kept in our playlist section on Moodle for you to review back. I'm going to wait 5 minutes just for any late attendees to turn up before we get started. So please be patient. Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome to this live session today on project evaluation. This is the fourth in a series of project management live classes. All of the video recordings will be held within the playlist section on Moodle for you to review back. Okay, so let's get started. So project evaluation, and the main aim of this session is to explain the three purposes of project evaluation. First and foremost is to reflect upon, if you've achieved the objectives, and also to discover what went and what didn't go well. You're reflecting back and seeing, what you can improve on in the future, gain an insight into different learning and development opportunities for the next project that you may undertake, okay? So let's get started. I'm going to start with just talking about two definitions, okay? So project evaluation is a vital step in the project management process. It's vital to reflect on the project as a whole and to gain in project closure is the final phase of the project. The team, if needs be, you want to up any sort of finances or close off any sort of invoices. Because in the past people holding invoices and not closing an invoice down for, say for example, a software they were using specifically for that project. A year down the line they ended up getting a really big bill for that software. So it's important that there is a project closure process. The two terms, project closure and project evaluation, is closures about closing down the, disbanding the team, paying invoices, wrapping the project up. And project evaluation is about looking at the positives, the negatives, and ways to move forwards and do better on the next project. So these are measurable, and the changes that can be obtained due to the project's successful accomplishment. They can determine the extent to which the identified problems have been mitigated or resolved or eliminated. So as a process, project evaluation, it's about taking the steps gaps to reflect upon the good and the bad and weigh up improvements. But, you know, more often than not, both of these processes, you know, people don't have time for them. And, you know, if you do find the time for both of these processes, I believe, you know, it's vital to have a close and a project evaluation process to be able to move forward and do better on the next project, to be able to see the good and the bad. Okay, so we've talked about, for anyone that's been and viewed our last videos or been part of our live class, we've talked about the different phases and process and project management throughout. And, you know, we've talked about the initiation phase and the doing phase, and we're basically focusing now on the final phases. So to complete the project review and report on the project performance, give praise and thanks to the project team, disbanding the team, and then the project follow-up. So whether you need to train staff or support them in different ways, and you know, you can then measure and report on the results and any sort of benefits or lessons learned. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Okay, so let's talk about, this is basically a simple, the 5 W's and a H simply ask questions about the process or the project, or even helps to find a root cause to a problem. So it can be used a lot in business. I've used it many a times, you know, even when thinking about new ways of working or innovation, you know, when you're thinking about new ideas, it's a really good tool to use, really good method. But, you know, an example as to why a section has been delayed, for example, you can ask the why, you know, where was the lead person in charge? You know, there's a number of different ways that you can find the root cause to a problem. So, you know, when reflecting back, ask why, ask what, ask where, ask when, ask who, ask how, so you can find the root cause to why there was an issue or a problem, or why basically, or how something went well and how you can do that again in the future. The H is a little bit different, as it's used to comprehend finer details, to analyse and provide judgments, to get to facts. So, you know, whereas the why, it's used a lot, like often it's used 5 times in problem solving. You'll continue asking why to be able to get to the root cause of a problem. But then finally asking, you know, how did that happen, or how could that be improved, is how you solve that problem. So often this, you know, this method is used within Six Sigma. So I'm not sure whether anyone's used Six Sigma methodology before, but for those who are new to the phrase, Six Sigma is a management philosophy. And what it does is it allows an organization to apply disciplined, data-driven approach that continuously brings improvements in business processes or the business performance, by basically reducing the variability in each business process. So Six Sigma is great when used regularly, as it creates an organisational culture aimed at learning to build processes and delivers the business or the project output usually flawlessly, or, you know, with less problems each time. But, you know, bringing it back to the 5 W's and the H, think about questions like, you know, who could have done that job better? Could you have outsourced an expert, for example? You know, think about, when was you using the Gantt chart effectively? Was you doing one job at the same time as another job? So they, you know, maybe they could have overlapped, but you'd left them, so one had to be done after another. Could that have saved time? Thinking about, you know, how, how could you have got that done quicker or less time, maybe by using twice the amount of staff? Where would that money come from? So you can use these questions in a number of different ways. Also, you can bring it back to Raki, or what we spoke about in the last session. So Raki looks at delegating tasks out to people, and it's a visual that looks at who's responsible for the task, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted and who needs to be informed. But, thinking about it, could you have had somebody else responsible for it to alleviate time for somebody else to do something else? So you can ask the how there, maybe, how could that have been done differently? Okay, and always bearing in mind, obviously, the deliverables. This can also be focused on just looking at the deliverables and if them in the right time, and then asking these questions for each of the objectives, the tasks or the deliverables that need to be achieved. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions just to make sure we're all still on the same page, just to ensure I don't need to go over anything in a little bit more detail. If you just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so firstly, can I ask, have you been a part of project evaluation before? It may not have been called project evaluation, so just have a think about how you've finalised a project. And then another name for project evaluation is project close down. Is that true or false? Okay. So we're all on the same page, and a couple haven't been involved in the project evaluation before, so we're going to know the ins and outs anyway, so you can always look back at this and review it if you do in the future as well. Okay, so this is a form that, you can use. I've seen it, in the past. Organizations use questionnaires, they use surveys, they use feedback. They sometimes have group conversations to get feedback. The whole form completed by the project manager, but also by the people within the team. Again, looking back to the Raki matrix, so complete this form. So then you can look at with the project plan. Did you have off tangents for some reason? Was there any problems? And all responsible for it as a project manager. How did you support the delivery of that responsibility in accordance with the plan? So as you can see, each responsibility has a 1 to 5 matrix, and they can be tallied up. The higher the rating, the better, really. So, a simple form that can be used. You can use any sort of one. You could make your own template up with each maybe objective and get everyone to mark on their opinions from it. But it's a good way to be able to get feedback from everyone if you can't get everyone to. Looking at the end of the project report, so the project manager should put it at the end. They should, get all the information together, and they should provide the paperwork, everything that's needed, and pass it to the stakeholders or the shareholders or the project sponsor. So the initiation paperwork firstly, so whether that's a business case or the proposal, then the project plan with the clear deliverables, and obviously all of the action points for everybody within the team. That could include, your Gantt chart, your work breakdown structure, your network diagram, whatever's involved in it. The benefits management plan is a structured approach, maximising good business outcomes, basically, for the organisation, and for the to be a change or a positive reaction. It will describe how the benefits of the project will be delivered, basically. Any sort of issue registers, issues get in the way of progress. Basically, you've got to encourage team members really to report them as they come, and if you keep that log, then it'll be easy to put that all in the report. So especially within big projects, it may be at every milestone, but yeah, it's important to be able to keep track of that, so you can identify them, you can understand them and communicate them. And often, if you keep a record of these issues or risks throughout, you might be able to do a little bit of training and improve on it before you get to the end of the project. So that's quite important as well. When we're looking at quality in big jobs, big sorts of roads, where jobs or bridges or whatever, their quality register will be, quite huge. But it's important to responsible person to monitor that. The project manager might not always have time. And the quality register might also include having things like an audit every 3 months, and that might include all the data in there, or there might be a standardization process monthly. So it depends how you're going to be monitoring the quality and the standards. There might be legal implications that you've got to keep an eye on. And then finally, the lessons report. Now, this is really good. It links with the issues, the issue register, and the quality register, but it also links with, what could you have done earlier? It makes it easier to write the report up at the end. But a lot of people do just look back, reflect upon, maybe have a meeting to discuss what went right, what went wrong, and write down the lessons, and then make sure that read and see, especially the stakeholders, the project sponsor, maybe the customer, and obviously everyone in the team should be able to see the report as well, to see how it went. So it should be a good plan of action to let everyone know about that. Hi, I am sorry about that. There was a slight delay in the internet there. Let's get back to it. Sorry about that. So together they uncover the project manager's overview of the success and failures, the review of the business case. So always link back to the plans, the original initiation, and the review of the objectives, the targets, and the strategy, which was the road to actually get there. And look back at the resources they used, maybe the suppliers, maybe the people that they used as well. A review also back on the team performance and whether they did well, and you might be able to write on each individual and be able to do a performance review afterwards. And again, they will uncover any lessons learned to be able to use in future projects. Okay, so looking back again, looking at the project information, reviewing, always trying to look back when you're doing project evaluation on the plan. And if you wrote a good plan, if everything went to plan, if you did a Gantt chart and you never looked at it once, then do you really need to do a Gantt chart on the next project if it's similar? If you put together a network diagram, but it took you a long time to be able to put it together, and it weren't really that useful because the project wasn't that big or complex, then would you need to use it again? But it's always good to be able to think of 5 items that you think went well, and maybe 5 items that also didn't go well. And then be able to, compare and contrast, well, was this needed, especially in relation to tools and techniques that you've used. Sometimes they might not, you might not need budget control. I mean, you probably do, otherwise you will go off budget, but you might not need a risk plan if it's going to be the same a risk log or a risk plan. A risk management plan if you're doing the same sort of project and you had the same one in the one before. So have a little think about that. Okay, so we need to just go back on then with me. Okay, so analyze the information that you've got. Now, it's important to be able to compare and contrast actual costs, maybe variable costs, or the tools and techniques that you've used, as I've just discussed then. The frequencies may be relating to any sort of faulty goods or defects, actual costs, to say, for example, you were to outsource a staff member, to using a staff member in-house. Maybe the staff member externally might have more experience in a specific field. So how frequently would you use them? Would you need to use them? And, thinking about, any sort of regularities. Then looking at you're looking at the costs, the dates that an event occurred, any sort of quality control issues that happen frequently, indicators, so the speed in which that you're looking, issues, and then they're being resolved. Is there an indicating factor that is coming forward that you can maybe stop it from happening in the first place, or being able to analyse that information? Then you've got the verbal measures, which looks at the quality of the team communication. Now, I think that this is one of the most important areas. Looking at, if you were to look back at, the first session that we did on stakeholder analysis, was you in contact with the right people in the right time? If you were emailing people every day when you didn't really need to, or if you were emailing people when you should have had a face meeting, that needs to be looked at as well. And then the subjective ratings is about the quality as judged by like a knowledgeable person. So you may need an expert to come in and verify the information, or they might be able to analyze that information better for you. Okay, let's move back forward. I hope you're all still with me here. Project analysis, you're analysing the project. That's what you do in a project evaluation, but you're also adding on by finding a good and a bad and a final opinion. So, the information, it can be used in different ways. You could be report, you could add a spreadsheet included in that. There could be diagrams of the actual project. There could be, project chain of command or organizational or project structure. You're not going to get any sort of dependencies. You could be putting things in a table. There's a number of different formats that you can use for a project. The main part is, I believe, is the conclusion part of the project closure, and it should be based on that the information that you've got throughout, looking back at what we've just covered, the risk log and all of the different things that need in the project evaluation. Okay, so the project closure checklist. I've been in companies before where they've actually had a checklist for every single thing that needs to be done, and it's been 2 pages long. These are the basics, so the deliverables to reach the end of the project and start off the closure process, stakeholders to sign off, tick off, done. The documentation, you need to and up-to-date documents such as, the lessons learned reports, the benefits management approach, the risk log, etc. Then the documentation again, but making sure that it's organised, filed, archived, and all the project documents are kept safe and secure, and up to date, but making sure that they're easy to be able to search, retrieve, in case you want to use them again for the next project. What's the point in putting it all together if they can't be used? Then you're looking at the follow-on recommendations. So these can be given to the people who will support the product and the project after the lifespan of the project. It could be, you've created a building for City Council, and the council are coming to take over from it. So you're basically going to give them the report and let them know exactly where you're in the road, or if there's any follow-up actions, anything like that. Then you've got your finances, making sure there can't be more on this, that all invoices are closed off, contracts are finalised, and every person who actually worked for the job has been paid, sorted, squared away, and you can say that part of the project is closed. That brings me on to resources. So the resources, from the equipment to the people, should be released project, disbanded in the team. If they're owned by the company, or resign them to a new project, or using a bulldozer, for example, you need to be paid for and handed back and the way it needs to be. So just moving forward with that and making sure everything off the checklist is ticked off in that project closure process. So the aim of project evaluation is basically to discover what went well and what didn't, to reflect on the achievements of the project objectives, and finally, to gain insight into learning and development and opportunities. So we have, a couple of really important areas to look at there when you're evaluating the project. And putting together a good report is one of the really good skills of a project manager, making sure that they've got time allocated, aside to be able to close that project effectively. Okay, so that is the end of our project management series and this is the last in my the final slides of my session for project evaluation. If anybody has any questions, I will be staying here for a couple of minutes. And if you've missed any of the sessions, you can look back on our playlist through Moodle. And I hope that this has been helpful to you. Thank you for all that have attended and watched, and I will see you again soon.